Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday morning to you, and welcome back to Morning Musings here on Now TV. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. You can check me out by going to my website, www.donkpreston or www.bibleprophecy.com. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of articles, all free for you to read. There is a vast number of books. I've personally written about 34 books on Bible prophecy and their fulfillment. And there are guest articles on there by some noted individuals in the religious community and what have you. So please take advantage of all of the free material that is available to you. We are living in the absolute most fantastic time in history. No, we're not living in a time predicted by the Bible, but we are nonetheless living in the most incredible time. Who would have thought that something we call a computer would come along that allows us, and I've got my laptop sitting right here in front of me. Who would have imagined, in about 1985, 86, somewhere along in there, I didn't, I could guarantee you, that we could sit at our desk, and here's a laptop on my desk, and we could type out a message, and it could be sent to all the world in a matter literally of seconds, and that we could do something called tweeting. Tweeting? What? Tweet? And, they got all sorts of other venues and platforms and this and that and the other. But the point of it is, we live in an absolutely incredible time. We live in a time in which the truth is and can be truly unfettered. I've had people tell me that if they had the chance, if they had the power and authority, they would shut me down. And you know what? Hackers have attacked my website numerous times. Thank the good Lord, got a really, really super good webmaster right now with really good safety precautions and what have you. But that's what happens. When people don't like what you are saying, they want to censor you. They want to silence you. And again, I can't tell you the number of times that I've had people just tell me, I would completely shut you down. I would shut you up if I had the authority. Well, guess what? They don't have the authority. And the truth is marching on. I hear from people literally all around the world on a daily basis who are coming to understand the message, the power, the glory, the beauty, and the unity of the story of fulfillment of all Bible prophecy. Now, I have been sharing with you, you have to excuse me, as I've shared with you, I have a lot of trouble with allergies, and this is the time of the year here locally where some of the things that give me the most problem, mountain cedars, for instance, they just give me all sorts of problems. So I have to do the best that I can. Hopefully, as we proceed in the video this morning, my voice will clear out. The tubes will clear out, and I won't have as much problem as I do to begin. But I've been sharing with you for well over a year about the challenge of Christ. Quick reminder, what is the challenge of Christ? I hope you know by now. I hope you can quote it yourself. Jesus in John chapter 10, 37 and following. Do not believe me for my words' sake. Believe me for my works. If I do not do the works which the Father has given me, do not believe me. Now look, folks, Jesus did not say, and I want you to contemplate the power of this, all right? Jesus did not say, if I don't do some of the things which my Father gave me, don't believe me. Jesus did not say, believe me if I do a few of the things that he gave me to do. Jesus' words are powerful, they are emphatic, they are explicit, and they are challenging. If I do not do the works that my Father has given me, do not believe me. Do you know what that means? It means exactly what Jesus said in Matthew 5, 17 and 18, where Jesus, standing in front of an audience of good, faithful, Torah-observant Jews, said to them, do not think that I have come to destroy the law and the prophets. I did not come to destroy, i.e., the law and the prophets, but to fulfill, i.e., the law and the prophets. For verily I say unto you, until heaven and earth passes away, not one jot, not one tittle shall pass from the law until it is all fulfilled. Now in the law, it prophesied, and by the law, he meant the Old Covenant, the law of Moses. And Jesus was saying it was his responsibility, his task, to fulfill all, not some, not a little bit, not even the majority, but all, every jot, every tittle of the law. Which is just another way of saying, if I do not do the works which my Father has given me, do not believe me. Because you see, the Father sent the Son to fulfill the law. The law of Moses, contained the Father's predictions, the Father's assignation of what the Son was to do when he would come. There is no disparity or disjunction between Jesus coming to fulfill the law, and Jesus doing the works which the Father had given him. Do you see the power of that? It is incredible. What are some of the works that the Father gave to the Son? We already know he came to establish the new covenant. We already know, and by the way, in Matthew 26 and following, at what we call the Lord's Supper, Jesus took the cup and he had the 12 apostles gathered around him. The 12 apostles, representative of the 12 tribes of Israel, which was a symbolic gesture that he was restoring Israel. But he took the cup of the Passover and he said, this cup is the blood of the new covenant. What did the Father send him to do? To establish the new covenant. How would he establish the new covenant? Well, he had to shed his blood. Without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sin. But the new covenant would be for the forgiveness of sin. Hebrews chapter 9, verse 15 tells us that Christ died for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first covenant. And he did die. He died in order to establish the new covenant, wherein is forgiveness. So the Father sent him. The Father gave him the task, the job, if you please, of establishing the new covenant. Did he do that? You know what? Dispensationalists say no, the new covenant has not been established yet. Thomas Ice, with whom I have had 4 debates, Thomas is a noted dispensationalist. Thomas Ice is on record as saying, the promise of the new covenant found in Jeremiah 31, 29 to 31 has not been fulfilled. Then Jesus failed to do the work that the Father gave him. Since he said, don't believe me if I do not do the work which the Father has given me, And since the dispensationalists say Jesus has not done what the Father sent him to do, we can only conclude that we should not believe in Jesus. Now somebody says, oh well, he will establish the new covenant at his second coming. Well, that's true. And when was that new covenant to be established at the coming of the Lord? Well, in Romans chapter 11, 26 and 27, it would be at the coming of the Lord out of Zion, when he would take away the sin of Israel. For this is my covenant with them, says the Lord, when I take away their sin. Now here's the key to this. Romans 11, 26 and 27 is citing verbatim from Isaiah 27, 10 and following, and Isaiah 59, 17 and following. Those are old covenant promises. What did Jesus say in Matthew 5? Not one jot, not one tittle shall pass from the law, the old covenant, until it is all fulfilled. The old covenant foretold the establishment of the new covenant to take away sin at the coming of the Lord. Therefore, unless the Lord has come and fully established the new covenant at his coming, then the old law has not been fulfilled. And Jesus has not fulfilled the mission and the works that the Father gave him to do, and therefore we cannot have a fully confirmed. Now, can we have faith in Christ based strictly and solely upon his resurrection? Well, of course we can. But is that faith fully confirmed, fully orbed, fully matured if he has not come? Well, not according to him, because if he hasn't done all of the work that the Father gave him, if he has not fulfilled all, every jot, every tittle of the old covenant, then once again, the old covenant stands valid. Israel remains as God's covenant people, and he has not yet fulfilled all that the Father gave him to do, meaning our faith is not yet completed. Now, I know that's somewhat stunning to hear, but that's what Jesus said in John 10, 37 and following. This is the challenge of Christ. Do not believe me for my words' sake. Believe me for my works. Well, I've spent a good bit of time on that, so I want to get back to Isaiah chapters 2 through 4, in which we find the following. We find the prediction of the last days. We find the prediction of the coming of the Lord in the last days. We find the prediction of the coming of the Lord to shake the heaven or to shake the earth mightily. Now, why do I mention that? Why have I spent 2 videos on this already? Because 2 Peter chapter 3, we are told, is absolutely proof positive of a yet future coming of the Lord at the end of the last days, when the Lord will come and destroy creation. So what do we have? We have Isaiah 2 through 4, the last days, the day of the Lord, destruction of creation. We have 2 Peter chapter 3, predicting the day of the Lord, and catch the power of this. Peter tells us emphatically in 2 Peter chapter 3, 1 to 2, that his prediction of the day of the Lord that he is going to discuss in the chapter is taken from the Old Covenant prophecies. He's just repeating the Old Covenant prophecy. So, if we have an Old Covenant prophecy of the last days, the day of the Lord, and the destruction of creation in Isaiah 2 through 4, And if we have 2 Peter chapter 3, which is reiterating the Old Covenant prophecies of the day of the Lord in the last days to destroy creation, then we have every right to ask, okay, since Isaiah is a prediction of the last days, the day of the Lord to destroy creation, since Peter is a reminder of the Old Testament prophecies of the day of the last days and the day of the Lord to destroy creation, then if Peter's not actually about the fulfillment of Isaiah 2 through 4, then what Old Testament prophecies is Peter talking about and drawing upon? You see the problem? You know, in numerous formal debates and countless private debates, I have asked my opponents this, especially amillennial and postmillennial opponents. If it's true, let me reiterate this question. If it is true that Peter, in 2 Peter 3, is repeating the Old Covenant prophecies of the last days, the day of the Lord, to destroy creation, then since it is true that Isaiah foretold the last days, he foretold the day of the Lord, he foretold the day of the Lord to destroy creation, then how do we determine that Isaiah is not one of the Old Testament prophecies that Peter is drawing upon? Now look, I'm absolutely convinced that Peter is drawing upon Isaiah 65:66. I am absolutely convinced he's drawing upon Isaiah 51. I am absolutely convinced he's drawing upon Daniel 9:24 to 27. He's not just drawing upon and alluding to one single Old Covenant prophet or prophecy. So, with all of that in front of us, a bit of rehearsal of what we have seen, Isaiah 2, just chapter 2 so far. Okay? Number one, it is a prediction of the last days. Number two, it's a prediction of the establishment of the Messianic kingdom, the Messianic temple. We have shown you that the New Testament interpretation of those motifs, of those tenets, proves it is a prediction of the establishment of the church of the living God. Point number two, we have established that Isaiah chapter 2 is very clearly about the last days, day of the Lord. By the way, okay, I won't spend too much time on this. Let me ask you a question. How many last days are there in the Bible? I know one thing. I was raised believing, I was raised teaching, there's only one last days, day of the Lord. And you know what? I have asked my opponents in formal public debate, how many last days, days of the Lord to destroy creation are there? You know what they've answered? Invariably, without any exception, oh, there's only one. It's at the so-called, I say, imaginary end of the endless Christian age. Okay, so if there is only one last days, day of the Lord to destroy creation, then that demands that Isaiah 2 through 4 is talking about the one, the ultimate last days, day of the Lord, which means it's the day of the Lord being predicted by 2 Peter chapter 3. You see how that works? The argument here, folks, I must tell you, I believe the argument is absolutely undeniable. I believe it's irrefutable. Okay, what is the nature of this day of the Lord? Well, last week I shared with you the irrefutable fact, this day of the Lord. Look at Isaiah 2:19 again. I got to hurry. They shall go into the holes of the rocks, into the caves of the earth, from the terror of the Lord, the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake the earth mightily. Okay, so this is, once again, the last days, day of the Lord, when the Lord would come to shake the earth, to destroy creation. By the way, this imagery of shaking the earth, According to Hebrews chapter 12, the imagery, the language of shaking something means its removal, its destruction. So, this is the destruction of creation. Now, I posed a question to you last week. In your view of eschatology, in the traditional views of the day of the Lord, the last days day of the Lord, is there any time to run to the mountains, hide in the rocks and the caves, and say, hide us from the day of the Lord? And look, folks, the undeniable answer to that is, and you can, well, see what's behind me here. I mean, it's that much of a fraction of my library. Every wall in my office here, almost every wall in that office, the walls in that office are full of books. Absolutely cram-packed full. Do you know, I am not aware of any futurist view of eschatology that allows for and that teaches that at the day of the Lord, men will be able to run to the mountains, find a cave, hide in the cave, and say, hide us from the day of the Lord. Oh, no, 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 no. No, no, no. They don't teach it. But that is what it says. Now, since no futurist view of eschatology in the day of the Lord teaches that at the day of the Lord men can escape it by running to the hills, then that means that no futurist eschatology is teaching what Isaiah 2 teaches. I've shared with you then that this language of running to the hills, according to Judges chapter 6, is typical language to describe a time of invasion. An army, a nation, a kingdom, invading another nation and kingdom, and the inhabitants fleeing from that invasion, running to the hills. Now, got to go on. Let me drive home the point in my final few moments here of how this passage absolutely is not referring to an end-of-time event. Notice that it says that they would go into the clefts of the rocks, verse 21 of chapter 2, into the crags of the rugged rocks from the terror of the Lord, the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake the earth mightily. Now, in Luke chapter 23, and by the way, in my book, The Elements Shall Melt with Fervent Heat, I document this extensively with careful exegesis, with impeccable, even if I do say so, with impeccable logic of what I'm about to share with you, okay? Go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com, order this book, The Elements Shall Melt with Fervent Heat, send me a note that says you saw the offer on Now TV, and I'll refund your shipping and save you $5. Okay, now then, in Luke chapter 23, 28 and following, Jesus was being led to his death, to his crucifixion. The women of Jerusalem were following him and weeping and wailing and crying for sorrow. They loved him. And as he is walking along, he says to those women, he turns to those women and he says, daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, weep for yourselves and for your children. If they do this in a green tree, in other words, in good times, what will they do in a dry, in difficult times? For verily I say unto you, the time is coming in which they will run to the mountains and cry to the rocks, fall on us. Do you see what Jesus is doing? He is quoting, by the way, all scholars agree. He is quoting verbatim from Isaiah chapter 2 and the parallel passage, by the way, of Hosea chapter 10 and verse 8. Now, here is something absolutely stunningly amazing. It is amazing when you can find Bible scholars of all stripes, of everyone, agreeing I have yet to find a Bible commentator. Hey, there may be one out there, but I have yet to find a Bible commentator that denies that Jesus was predicting the impending fall of Jerusalem that occurred in AD 70. So what does that mean? That means that Jesus, our Lord, was aware of Isaiah chapter 2 and its prediction of the day of the last days and the day of the Lord. By the way, when did Jesus appear? Oh, he appeared in the last days. Hebrews 1 and 2. So here's Jesus, who is living in the last days, and he is quoting verbatim from Isaiah chapter 2 in its prediction that at the last days, day of the Lord, men would run to the hills and cry to the rocks, save us, fall on us and save us from the day of the Lord. And Jesus was applying it to the coming judgment of Jerusalem. Now look, folks, that means that Jesus, unless he was wrong, and he wasn't, that means that we have Jesus himself interpreting Isaiah's prophecy of the last days, day of the Lord, when men would run to the mountains, cry to the rocks, fall on us and save us from the day of the Lord. When the Lord would arise to shake the earth mightily, it means that Jesus was applying that prophecy to AD 70 and the coming fall of Jerusalem. Oh, by the way, did you know that we have the testimony of Josephus, who was a Jew, a priest, who was present at the siege and the destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, who testified of how the inhabitants fled to the hills? Yeah, they fulfilled Isaiah. Now, next week, we've got more. Going to drive this home next week. You absolutely do not want to miss what I'm going to share with you next week. So, be looking for that because it is absolutely fantastic. I'll see you then.